You are listening to the Lawyer Stories podcast with host Benny Gold. Lawyer Stories was founded in July 2017 on Instagram and is an expanding global network of lawyers and law students sharing their personal journeys to the noble profession of the practice of law. Join us on this podcast as we dig deeper into these stories and hear from lawyers and law students from around the world in all areas of the legal profession. Here at Lawyer Stories, we believe that every lawyer has a story. What's yours?
Welcome to the Lawyer Stories podcast with Benny Gold. Today we welcome Michael Kopsick, owner and attorney at the law offices of Michael W. Kopsick, focusing on personal injury in the Chicagoland area. How are you, sir?
Yeah, doing great. Thanks so much for having me. Really looking forward to this.
Yeah, man, it's great to have you. Thanks for, following Lawyer Stories and your support. I really appreciate it. It's good to have you.
Yeah, absolutely. I just was telling you off air, so to speak. I've been checking out all the Spotify episodes and really looking forward to adding my name to it.
That's awesome. So Michael, tell us, are you a Chicago native?
Yeah. So, I think a lot of people from the suburbs say that they're Chicago natives. I grew up in Lake Bluff, which is a northern suburb of Chicago, but certainly consider, Chicago where I grew up. And after coming back from college, I lived down there for almost 10 years. So, certainly, home to me and in many respects.
Yeah. Okay. That's awesome. So you, when you say coming back, like, where were you? Like you were?
Yes. So I went to Clemson undergrad. So I was in South Carolina for a few years, came back and then, went to law school at John Marshall, which is a city school in Chicago. So I was back there and then lived there, practiced down there for roughly 10 years.
So like, why did you want to go? So you went to Clemson. That's cool. I mean, that to me sounds like a football school, like a good time. Like, what made you do that? And then that's sort of like you're out for like the 4 years from, the Chicagoland area. What was like the drive to do that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I really just wanted to do something different. I kind of wanted to blaze a different trail.
Yeah.
Where I went to high school, a lot of people, it's Big Ten country. And there's certainly nothing wrong with Big Ten schools. I applied to several of them, but I knew I just kind of wanted to get away, try something new, be one of one in my high school class rather than, one of 30. And it ended up being a great decision for me.
So that's a great experience. And then you can come back and, serve the people of like your hometown after going to, so you go to John Marshall. There's actually a couple John Marshalls, right? Like there's one in Chicago area. Then there's another one where Atlanta.
Yeah, Atlanta. Actually, and the John Marshall in Chicago is no longer. It's now University of Illinois, Chicago. It's kind of been rebranded, reestablished as a public school rather than private, I think, when I went through. So John Marshall is RIP status now, but it's people say UIC, but all the people I went to school with certainly still refer to it as.
Did they give you an option to get a new like diploma with the new name on it?
They did.
They did. All right. Did you take them up on that or not?
I didn't. Some people did, and I said, I'm gonna live. John Marshall was exactly where I went. I'm not gonna pretend I went to some cool state school or some bigger high profile school.
Gotcha.
I know where I went.
Yeah, I mean, I know that could. Well, we had something with that was on our diploma, and they gave us. I'm not going to say what it was here, but they gave us the opportunity to get one that was just without the person's name on it because he did some.
Sure.
He said some not so nice things. Okay, so so you grew up with your dad as an attorney. So like, tell us about when you first knew you wanted to be an attorney.
Yeah. So, I always kind of knew I had the skill set. That was the important part. I always wanted to defy my dad in some way and never admit that I was going to be an attorney. So I got a business degree in college and kind of never wanted to say the words, but we both knew it was going to happen. And it really kind of came to fruition early on when I was in, middle school and high school, shadowing him, mediations and trials. I saw that I had the same skill set as my dad, and he was phenomenal on his feet. And I'd like to think, those are where my skills are as well. Now.
Do you think he saw that too?
Yeah, I think so.
With you, with you doing that?
With me, certainly. As nerdy as it sounds, I did a lot of theater growing up. I was, the host of my talent show and just kind of always wanted to be on stage performing on my feet. So I think those skills translated. I think my dad could certainly see that from an early age. I was always quick to say my opinion and not be wrong. And those are good skills.
Not be wrong.
Sometimes.
Not be wrong. Do you think
Right.
theater and stuff like that translate into kind of good advocacy when you're up there in front of the court, or like, in an administrative hearing, like you have to sort of put it on a little bit?
I think it has to right? I mean, what you're doing is you're performing in a trial, in a court, whether you're, delivering a message, delivering an argument, you're still performing and trying to have people buy into you and sell what it is your argument is. I think just the simple exercise of being on stage, throughout your life in theater or performances certainly helps, and really understanding how to believe what you're spewing out there so other people can believe you. I think it's really crucial.
Right, right. So tell us about growing up with your dad as a lawyer. Like, did you see his like tough work ethic? Like, was he always working? Was he always in court? Was he stressed out? Like, what was that like?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I think he towed the line so well, and to this day he still practices. He's closing in on 70 years old, but he's in the office Monday through Sunday in one respect or the other. Always in on the weekends, and that's when he would take my brother and I to the office.
Yeah.
And we would kind of see him go to work on the weekends, and we'd always be in the libraries speaking with other attorneys in the office. So he certainly had a great work ethic, and still that we always called the iron butt. You got to get your butt in the chair. You gotta be glued to your chair. But he also plays his fair share of golf, and that
Awesome.
certainly resonates with me. And I think he towed the line. He struck the balance between a good work-life balance, but never allergic to, being cemented in the office when he needed to be.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's not old. Almost 70. That's young. I mean, I'm older. So, I mean, not that 70, but like, I mean, I know like that's not that old. So do you see him in the office Saturdays and Sundays? You're like, man, he's going to expect me to do that too. I mean, you don't work with him, but I don't think, but
No, I don't. No, we share a few cases, we help each other out here and there. I have some office space with him, but no, if anything, it's like a motivating thing. I've been in the office, in the winter, Saturdays and Sundays. It's not golf season.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to knock out the work now while it's still cold. I'll always text him and tell him how many hours I put in, because I'm not going to tell anybody else. I want to make sure he's there too.
Right.
He wants to make sure I'm here kind of pushing each other along.
That's good. That's a great like synergy that you guys have. So we talked about Clemson. That's really cool that you went to a school out there. What was your law school experience like?
Yeah, it was kind of very matter of fact, right? Like
Okay.
I don't want to say anything negative about John Marshall, but it's obviously not the Northwestern or the University of Chicago's of the world. It's known as a practice ready law school. I think people in our area, the reputation of John Marshall is it produces trial ready, practice ready, litigation ready individuals. So that's also kind of an excuse for people who went there to say that, but I think it's true. My vision was not to get a 4.0. I definitely tried hard, and I definitely focused and gave it my all. However, my intention was to graduate, to pass the bar, and to get into the courtroom as soon as possible. So
Right.
it was kind of a means to an end for me personally.
Okay.
Because I always knew what the goal was. I think that's kind of how a lot of people approached it.
Did you take any time off between undergrad and law school or no? And
No,
did you live at home or like on campus or whatever?
I lived at home, up in the suburbs briefly. We have like a metro commuter train I took for the first year, and then I was down in the city. But no, I didn't take any time off. So I was taking the LSATs during college and the summer in between, and just kind of fed right in. I felt like if I took a break from school, I'd never go back.
That's kind of, I took a year off, but I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
So you did have an initial interest in like criminal law, right? Like you liked that, but then you kind of saw it and you were like, this isn't really for me. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. It's an interesting ride. You talked to me 10 or 12 years ago, I would say if I'm not in criminal defense or if I'm not a prosecutor or just in criminal law, I did something wrong. That was around the time, in 2013 and 14, if you recall, like the new Jim Crow book came out. It was mass incarceration was a big topic in law school. the overpopulation, overcrowding of prisons. That stuff really resonated with me. So I didn't know if I wanted to be a prosecutor, defense, judge, whatever. I knew that that was kind of where the adrenaline started pumping, being in the courtroom with essentially someone's life on the line. That's what resonated with me. So, yeah, I had internships at the state's attorney's office up in Lake County, which is where I'm at now, in the public defender's office in Cook County. You can imagine what that would be like in Chicago. And those experiences, if nothing else, kind of turned me off from the world of criminal law. Just with all of the plea deals and the sentencing negotiations, it seemed like litigation was just plea centric rather than, going to trial, fighting for your clients. It was really how great of a deal can we work here? And that was not very reassuring to me.
Was it a little bit
enter that field.
like sort of like a mill? Like they just have all these cases that they're trying to like work out, and they just kind of, is that sort of,
Yeah,
lack of a better term, I guess.
that's a perfect term. I can certainly recall going back to lockup with the Cook County Public Defender. This was my last year of law school. I was a 711 license, so I was doing some trials and some assistance as a second chair. But 95% of our day was walking back into lockup, seeing whose case was up, seeing who wanted to plea out, discussing what percentage of the sentence they were going to serve, 85%, 50%. It had nothing to do with, the merits of the case, whether or not they were innocent or guilty. All of those things. It was just, it was a mill. And it was a bad experience for sure.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's, hey, you knew what you didn't like, right? So that kind of helps eliminate. So you, what's your interest over to PI? What was your first, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. And it wasn't necessarily that I kind of knew what I didn't want to do. It was really disappointing to find out, that something that I had believed in for a long time, it was kind of not true, or I felt like this could be something I could do to really get home to people and really help people. But after I kind of peeled back the layers, I found out maybe I can't help as much as I thought. Maybe my opinion was idealistic in law school, and I have to shift away from that. So it was disappointing to kind of take a detour, so to speak. But I found personal injury as that second best option to really work with clients face to face and to help people who are in need of assistance, people who cannot help themselves. So that was kind of my next best option.
Totally. And so what was the pivot like from criminal to personal injury?
Yeah, well, it was my first job that I took was a defense attorney. So I've been a plaintiff now for, plaintiff's attorney for going on 11 years. But I spent a year as a defense attorney. That was interesting because I never had the mindset to be plaintiff or defense or in personal injury. I just knew I wanted to be in courtrooms and in litigation. So the pivot was not overly difficult, only because, I didn't have a crazy amount of experience coming out of law school. I just had my preconceived notions. So to me, it was all gravy. I got immediate trial experience from my first boss. For better or worse, he completely left me on my own to try cases, which is, almost unheard of nowadays, but was fortunate enough for that. So it was a quick transition to a new area of law. Felt like I was, always had my feet to the fire, but, in a good way.
That's awesome. So tell us about your firm right now. So like what type of people are seeking you out to get your help at the law offices of Michael Kopsick?
Yeah. So, it's personal injury, everything. It's every single way someone could be injured, besides workers' compensation. I try to focus on work injuries, construction accidents, and, of course, medical malpractice, nursing home, car accidents. It's certainly a smattering of everything, but, people who are seeking me out are local individuals. I'm trying to emphasize my hometown and break back into this barrier of attorneys that are, very well settled here, but trying to do my best to get my name out there.
What's that like, coming back to your hometown and being able to to advocate and take care of people who might have been in a really bad accident or gotten screwed by something? What's it like to be an advocate for your hometown?
Yeah. I mean, it's That's an amazing question. I could probably write a book about it. Honestly, I'm somebody who has immense pride in, where I went to school. I still am friends with 15 of the greatest guys from my high school class.
Amazing.
I go back to Clemson once or twice a year for games and see all my friends who still live down there. I'm very loyal to, the places that I've kind of dedicated myself to over time. So, to come back home and represent people, family members, of friends and people that I have, first and second degree connections to, there's really nothing like it, nothing that I could say to truly describe it in a very nice way. It's just, it resonates with me, and, it's the greatest honor that I could have.
Yeah, no, that sounds like a really important thing and pretty amazing, actually. So tell us why you feel it's important. And I think I summarizing this from your website, but to meet with clients face to face, and practice the type of law where you can practice empathy and advocacy in the same type of role. I know you talked about being able to help people, but I didn't know if there was something beyond that.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think a lot of what I try to do in my own practice, especially because I'm on my own, is to right all the wrongs of what I've seen from bigger firms, from other firms, not just firms that I've worked for or worked with, but just what I've seen along the way, in the past decade. I think having that empathy for clients, having that, that desire to be face to face with a client and to really feel what they went through. It's so easy to be lost in the shuffle as a client, and that we have the worst reputation and stereotypes in the legal world, billboards and ambulances and what have you. And I think my goal has always been to humanize, the client, not make them a number or just another case. These people have. It sounds cliche, but they really are most times experiencing one of the worst days of their lives or the worst day of their lives. And it's my job to feel that. I haven't gone through it necessarily, but it's my job to tap into that. And I think it's completely lost upon, 95% of the people, the attorneys in my profession, in my area of law, and I'm trying to right those wrongs.
Yeah, no, I think that's totally true. And when you talk about cliches, I feel like cliches are usually true. A lot of them are like kind of true, but yeah, no, that makes great sense. I mean, I do, there are a lot of PI attorneys who, don't really handle their own cases, or, they're farming them out all the time. And, so that's refreshing to hear. Along that same line, like what types of characteristics do you think it make a good personal injury attorney?
Well, competitor comes to mind, somebody who just wants to win everything. I think that's probably my greatest asset and my worst flaw, to be frank. I want to win the lien negotiation. I want to put $400 back in my client's pocket at the end of a case. So I'll take an extra 3 weeks to grind down, a lien holder. It's that kind of, want to. And that usually comes from, you see a lot of the athletes in our world, former athletes, just people who love sports, love to talk football, basketball, whatever. Those people are kind of focusing in on those tiny little micro competitions throughout, the big kind of overarching theme of litigation, right? Because obviously winning a trial is one thing, but it's really those small wins that you get that really kind of drives the success of your case and the successful relationship you have with the client.
Okay, that's good. So tell us about like practicing law in Chicago. Like, is there really like a difference between Chicago litigation and like suburbia, like practicing there? Like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think Chicago, certainly 10 years ago and, definitely 30 years ago, haven't experienced it, but everything you hear, and I caught the tail end of all of that. It's down home, fighting, knuckles in the mud type of litigation. Nobody's really friends, it seems.
Really?
Not friendly. The clerks are not friendly. The judges are not super friendly. The adversaries are not friendly. There's exceptions along the way. I think one of the biggest changes of, Lake County up here on the North Shore is everyone knows each other. No one burns bridges up here. And, I'm always walking that fine line because, deep down in my litigation Chicago DNA, I want to burn bridges. Some part of me I want to win at all costs. And I don't care about, any long lasting relationship with a defense attorney, but up here, you have to have that. So I'm always trying to strike that balance, but yeah, Chicago is a fight. It's always, a tug of war, and it made me the attorney that I am. I'm very thankful
Right,
to
right.
have had that experience, but it's a different game up here, certainly, in the suburbs.
So like the bar there, like if they have like a networking event or something, people be like throwing fists at each other. Is that?
It's just like, it feels like there's really no long lasting relationships. Like, I wouldn't say we have a couple beers, I think everyone's going to be pretty friendly.
Yeah.
But, in depositions and motion practice and all the little things where up here in Lake County, people tend to say, hey, I'm not going to make you work. I'm not going to throw a motion at you just because I can or because I'm billing the file. But in Chicago, it's like, we fight over everything. It seems like just because that's what we're used to. So, I was always trying to drag defense attorneys, drag other attorneys in my firm out of that mindset where, hey, we don't have to fight about everything. And my mindset has always been, I'll fight with the people who fight with me first. I want to create a great relationship and a great working relationship if possible. If you do something to set the tone to the negative, I'm on board. Trust me, it's just not my first choice.
Do you remember like a time in Chicago practicing when you were like, whoa, like somebody did something and you were just like taken back because like really like nasty or whatnot?
I mean, I've got so many little things like, literally the first time I ever stepped up in front of a judge who, I didn't know at the time was known to be mercurial and just, crazy, where I asked for too much time for written discovery to answer. And he told me to get my toothbrush because he was going to hold me in contempt of court and send me to jail. And that was my first interaction with a judge. And when I was like tailing between my legs, I'm just doing what my boss told me to do, told me to say verbatim, and I was about to be held in contempt, basically because I'm an idiot, but not because I did anything malicious, right? It was my first day. I've had attorneys in depositions.
You think he did that because he knew it was your first day? Like,
I think he did it because he was kind of half crazy. That, he certainly could have, and I probably deserved a little bit of that, but it was a scary opening round for me.
Wow.
But yeah, there's little anecdotes like that where with attorneys trying to pull fast ones on you, and you kind of have to really, you're there to protect yourself, from someone else screwing you over. That's the mindset set.
That's, I don't know. Sounds like you got a lot of stuff. You could write an article about it, probably. Just redact the names. So
they know who they are.
They know who they are. So, and I think you touched on this, but like working at bigger firms, like how did that translate? Did it make becoming entrepreneur like easier, like on you, like working at a bigger firm, seeing how things are done, or what was like the transition like there?
Yeah, it's really difficult to pinpoint. I think working in a large firm is a phenomenal experience early on because you see every bit of litigation and you see some of the top dogs in your line of work. One of my biggest regrets is, leaving the firm that I left a little bit too early because of some personal drama with a partner. That's a story for a different day.
You want to share that?
No, yes, I'm happy to. Happy to, but that training was immeasurable for me. Taught me how to be a dog, and so I wouldn't have gotten that from anywhere else but there.
Yeah.
And again, I have to credit, being connected to my dad and this county and the suburbs, so to speak, where I always, again, trying to strike that balance between what I learned in the big firm and kind of what the small town has taught me as well.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because, I worked in a bigger city than where I work now. And so I see how that, it's a little more, I like the energy of the place, but it definitely not like dangerous, but it's more hustle and people are, it's a lot different than like a slower pace sort of, place that I'm at now. And people
For sure.
gentler with each other and like, a little nicer. But I know exactly, but I think I think like getting that experience, like before you go into that is actually valuable. If you had to go the other way around, it might be a little difficult, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. I think people can certainly do it if they start in the suburbs or, start on their own right away. But, for someone to really take you under their wing, like a lot of individuals did for me, I'm sure it's the same for anyone working in a big firm, that's stuff that sticks with you forever.
Yeah, no, for sure. So you mentioned earlier you were a business major at Clemson. Do you think that helped at all with with opening your firm, or not really? Because like it's under your head and you're going to football games and stuff.
Yeah, no, I mean, probably not in particular business, but, certainly I was an economics major. I was a
Wow.
bachelor of arts. So, my degree was focused on reading comprehension. I was an English minor and a sociology minor. So with the arts type of degree, I was certainly reading a lot, digesting a lot of written material. If I went, the science or math route of an econ major, that would have been a different story. So I think how I chose within that major, certainly helped, but not per se, business. I don't think I didn't learn how to do my taxes or how to
Yeah.
put money in my IOTA account,
Yeah.
in college.
Stuff they don't
Unfortunately.
teach you in law school either, unfortunately.
Exactly.
Tell us about like your favorite thing about owning your own firm.
I would have to say the freedom, right? I mean, it's the grind that you have to feel and embrace to know that you're doing enough at all times, but also to have that freedom where, if I want to take a day off, I can. If I don't feel like going into work, at a certain time, I don't have to. That autonomy, is great as far as logistics go. But really what I would say to you is the autonomy professionally to plead my complaints the way that I want to, and to negotiate the way I want to settle a case when I want to, not when someone else wants to. And most importantly, not having to answer to somebody who is kind of breathing down your neck, possibly for the wrong reasons. I have no issues working for people whose job it is and whose goal it is to help and to mentor and to guide. The problem that I had was, someone was breathing down your neck for the wrong reasons. Now this new autonomy that I have is unparalleled.
That's amazing. So did you get to a point where you felt like your style was like good enough or maybe superior to be able to do that by yourself? Like you didn't really need any help anymore. And like, what is your style? Like what compared to maybe another, I mean, I know we talked about them like kind of, I don't want to say bullying each other around, but fist in the mud, you say, what's your style? How do you approach?
Yeah, my style is, I'm not allergic to the fight. I'm not allergic to getting my hands dirty. And frankly, that's probably where I am most successful is, when I get a chip on my shoulder because I don't like you or you've done something to kind of wrong me professionally, I take it, as fighting words, and I'm going to do everything I can to have the competitive side, come out in me and win. So that's kind of how I've always operated, but I always like to think I have a softer side as well, where I think some of the best litigators cannot turn that off, for better or worse. When they get in depositions, they destroy other people, sometimes to their detriment. So I like to think that I've got that well-rounded touch where I can, associate with people and my style resonates with people. But when it comes time to it, I will destroy you if I have to. That's the mindset, at least.
Yeah, no, that's great. What advice can you give to somebody who's about to launch their own firm or thinking about it?
Yeah, it's such a hard decision, right? I had a lot of things go right for me where, I parted ways with my law firm. I happened to get a severance several months. So that kind of freed me up financially to really dive in. I don't think I would have been able to do it without that, frankly, because I didn't have any cases with me really when I started, just a few. My best advice is, pull the trigger when the opportunity presents itself. I wouldn't say just go dive in automatically or, you're going to win, you're going to succeed no matter what. I think things have to kind of line up professionally for that to happen. And hopefully you have some experience working a case from start to finish. That's kind of where I built my role within a larger firm is I can take the case in and I can settle the liens, and I like to do the little stuff and the dirty stuff. If you have that, and everything lines up, you can certainly dive in, head first.
Start to finish. I think that's really good advice. What about, so you talked about cases, not taking the case with you. Like, what's your biggest referral source? Like, how do you go about getting cases?
Ironically, my old firm that I had a great experience with is a big, support, and they refer me a lot of cases. So, I think early on as a solo practitioner, we tend to get our cases from other attorneys, which is not as beneficial to the bottom line, but it really, I'm really proud of those connections because it shows that bridges weren't burned, and the relationships, are sustained. And that's really, special to me to get cases from, former employers.
Yeah, for sure. And by the way, if you ever see anybody on Lawyer Stories Instagram or elsewhere that you want to connect with, I'm happy to make the warm connection. If you feel that, lawyer networking is a beneficial thing to your firm.
Oh, it certainly is. I wish I could say I got, the phone rings off the hook with new clients that come straight into me. But, a lot of the cases I see are from attorneys, and I'm always, it's the happiest check that I'll ever write is a referral check, right?
Yeah.
It's the easiest check to cut. But, I think, like I said, having those relationships is very important to me.
That's great. So we talked about how you get most of your cases. What's the most difficult thing about having your own firm? We just talked about like politics. And is there anything difficult you want to share? Any like things?
Yeah,
watch out for?
It's I think the art of money management, especially in our world of personal injury where we're not billing. So it's not just, I might be in the office, every single day doing the exact same amount of work doesn't necessarily mean checks are coming in. So I think the money management is truly an art form. How hard you have to push defense attorneys to get releases out, to get checks sent. Obviously taxes and all that's a different story, but really balancing the books, making sure the money's coming in, and having a sense of how long it takes to wrap a case up. When we might be settled today, but I might not see money for 90 days,
Wow.
if there's extenuating circumstances. So, bringing in money and settling cases, I think kind of anyone can do. Do you have the art of, balancing the books and making sure the money's coming in when you need it most? So
Yeah. Wow. That sounds kind of challenging to wait. I'd be emailing those guys every day.
Yeah, sometimes I try to, if I'm desperate for a check, which there's months where it's a dry month, and maybe I've got some things burning in the fire, so to speak, for a couple of months from now. But if I've got a settlement and I need the check, I'm not allergic to putting the heat on. As I have gotten further and further along in practice, that's not as much of a concern, thankfully. But you have to know when to push the buttons on your cases. And they are assets to you in a way because they're, money making ability with each case. When you press the button, how you press the button, that's an art form that I think only someone in my position can really understand as part of being a larger firm. You want to make money, but it's not your greatest concern is when are the checks coming in. You just want to make sure you're doing a great job. Now I have to do both, which, again, it's the grind that I love and that management that kind of drives me every day.
Yeah, that's great. Sounds like you really picked it up though, in terms of knowing how to do that, push those buttons, like you said, and when to do that. So, tell us about some of the videos you're putting out on like Instagram. Like what are you trying to, it's great, man. Like, what are you doing over there? Like,
yeah. Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm just getting my feet wet in the Instagram world. And as everyone says, you need to push video content if you want to build a following. So, I'm doing nothing. I'm not reinventing the wheel. Certainly. I'm trying to give kind of sound, basic advice with respect to not only personal injury, but hiring an attorney. And I'm trying to, a little bit of me wants to unveil the hidden secrets a little bit and tell clients, hey, you can negotiate this. You can speak up to your attorney. He or she might budge on, X, Y, or Z. So some of the things that I've kind of had a criticism of other attorneys for handling clients a certain way. I want to make sure the clients know, hey, it's not always what it seems. It's not always what you read about, what you see on TV. Try this. Maybe you can improve your situation a little bit.
That's awesome. So you're just saying you're just getting your feet wet in it? Like it hasn't been there?
Yeah, with like the reels and all that. And kind of the Instagram account for, as long as I've been in existence. And it's hard to build a following because but personal injury is the weirdest world where nobody really wants an attorney or thinks they need one until they actually do.
Right.
I can't just go grab Benny as my client right now. He's not hurt right now. He doesn't have a case right now. So I'm trying to pander to an audience and, not be boring and not be repetitive and not be, too in your face. At the same time, I think I can offer a lot of little tidbits and of wisdom here or there. At least I think I can.
Totally. I think you should keep going. I mean, believe me, I see these attorneys all the time. They pop up on my feed. It's, we need some new blood out there, man. Come on.
Yeah.
Keep it going, dude. You're doing a great job.
No, I think a lot of people in our world are a little on the older side, right? And they're not necessarily versed in Instagram. And I want to walk that fine line between being that goofy, social media personality that you see out there. I don't want any part of that. But I do want to remain professional, but also helpful. And I want people to follow along, kind of enjoy the ride with me.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. Give us some misconceptions about PI attorneys that you'd like to dispel.
I mean, the easiest one that comes to mind is the ambulance chaser. I think truthfully, I've seen it in my early years where, I won't lie, I've been associated with a firm to some extent that hired investigators who cruise around with police radio, and they went up to car accidents and they gave them their card and they got business that way. That's basically the dirtiest thing that you can do in our world. I wouldn't even consider doing that. But I think that was a tactic and a style that was old school. They did 30 years ago, 20 years ago, 10 years ago with the worst firms. But nobody does that. Nobody chases around cases and tries to get neck strain cases. I want nothing to do with whiplash injuries. I think in the last 10 years, defense firms have moved on from those cases. And not only they fought those cases so hard a decade ago that plaintiffs don't file them anymore, thankfully. So, dispelling the rumor that we love these neck injury cases. I hate those cases.
Yeah.
I don't think they are cases. And I don't think a lot of personal injury attorneys would disagree with me on that.
Like you see the client coming into the courtroom with like that big thing on their neck.
Right.
Old movies and stuff.
Yeah. It's a funny joke and a funny stereotype. And I always tell my friends, over a beer or what have you, it's all fun and games until you're the one who's hurt. And you really do need me, and they will say, well, I wouldn't hire you anyway. I'd hire somebody else. And, I'm like, okay, joke's on me.
Yeah.
But,
we better not hire somebody else.
We do serious work. And, I almost don't want to have to feel like I'm continuing to defend myself. And, I handle medical malpractice cases, death cases, nursing home abuse, sexual assault, really serious stuff. And for people to just look at me or someone else as, an ambulance neck injury attorney, it's just couldn't be from the truth, and would love to put that one to bed.
Right. I think it's
never put to bed.
I'm convinced. So where do you see the firm in like 5 to 10 years?
Yeah. I have visions of grandeur. Certainly. I want to hire attorneys. I want people to, work underneath me and with me. I want to guide the kind of the next generation, and, give somebody or multiple people the benefit of what I had, which was great leadership for the most part and great guidance. I see my firm growing into multiple layers. And, I'm looking to hire somebody right now as it stands, and, start with a young associate and hope that, we can build that individual up to, maybe being a partner with me one day. That's kind of how I see it now. But yeah, I'd love to have a bigger firm. I'd love to have more pull in this county and down in Chicago, but it's one day at a time. You got to lay the groundwork, which I feel like I've done. And now it's it's time to go to the next level. That's how I'm feeling right now.
That's awesome. Congratulations on all your success. And is there anything we left out that you want to talk about today, Michael?
No, I don't think so. No, I appreciate, being on the podcast.
Yeah.
And I think it's always an interesting conversation with individuals who might be thinking about starting their own firm. Can I do it? I would just like to, almost reiterate that people with less intelligence have done this before and done it successfully. I don't consider myself smart in the sense of, books and test taking. I consider myself a people person. If you have people skills and you can resonate with other people, then there is no doubt that people can be successful. So, have the confidence to do it. Hopefully things line up. And that would be my message to people who are considering it.
I love that. I think that's such an important message, Michael. Thank you so much, Michael Kopsick, Chicagoland personal injury attorney here on
Thank you very much.
Podcast. Yeah, man. Stay right there.
Appreciate it.
Everybody, wherever you are in the world today, thanks for tuning in. Wherever you are in the world today, enjoy yourselves.